I don't usually make spaghetti, like once every few months, but when I do, I use spicy Italian sausage instead of meatballs. I think it has a lot more flavor, and what I always do is cook it in the pan first. I've got my pot here that I'm going to use to cook my gravy, and I always get that going first because I want to deglaze all of that stuff. See all that goodness on the bottom? I want that in my gravy, I guess it is, my pasta sauce, whatever. So I'm going to take these out and then cut them into meatball-sized pieces. Next step, I'm going to chop this entire onion up, dice it up. Well, nope, that's not next. I actually like fruitier wines for this, or lighter wines, because it's a heavy flavor. So I want to brighten it up with a little Cote de Rhone. Then some MSG, some tomatoes, some tomato paste, and we'll have a little bit of fun here. All right, so these are coming out. Quick onion tip, you don't need to do lateral cuts. See how I've got this cut? You cut at angles all the way around the onion. Just like you're kind of like going around 90 degrees, 80 degrees, 75 degrees, like cut it like that. And then, there we go, see? No lateral cut there. Just don't cut it all the way to the root and leave the root attached. And it's so much easier or just faster to dice onions this way. None of those lateral cuts. You don't really need to cook the onions much, just a little. And it's very important, in my opinion, that you use an onion that doesn't have too much sugar, like a yellow onion or something. If you use a Vidalia onion or a sweet onion, it's just going to fall apart after you cook it for a little while. So yellow onions have a much better texture. Red onions are somewhere in the middle. So if you have the option, get the yellow onion. It's also typically the least expensive. And that's what I'm going to sizzle up in here. You don't want this to get black on the edges. You just want this to get a little bit of a head start. I mean, it's going to cook really well in the sauce, but I like to fry it a little bit. Gives it that little extra something. Fastest way to peel garlic is to put your knife blade on top of it like this, and then what you're going to do is just give it a good hit and smash it down right there. So I'll show you what it looks like after I give it one good hit right on top. So there it is, it's smashed, right? Just grab the front, just give it a little shake. Look, peel came right off. It's easy. Now, you can throw it in there like this if you like a lot of garlic. I'm going to chop up a few of these and throw it in there, maybe 4 or 5 at least. You can do 6 if you want. If you need a little more oil, see there's any dryness in there, you want to add a couple of glugs of olive oil. That's all you're really going to need. You won't need to add much oil later, so get that going. Make sure it's all nice and hot. Okay, you're starting to see some of the pan come up. It's time, I believe, for a little bit of wine. I'm just eyeballing about 1/4 to 1/2 cup. There we go, look at that. And just scrape it around. We're trying to clean the bottom of the pan here to get all that goodness, all that wonderful char and flavor in here. Okay, there we go. It's a good bit of wine. I'm going to let it cook down just a tiny bit. This will just cook off some of the alcohol content. It'll happen while it's cooking anyway, but do it first. And then I'm going to put maybe a teaspoon or so of salt in there. You want to do salt to taste. And then it depends on the quality of your tomatoes, but you may or may not need sugar. One other thing that I do, other than adding tomato paste, I'm going to bring up the umami even more by adding MSG. There we go. I add about a teaspoon of that as well. It is delicious. Alright, so I'm going to chop these into the meatball-sized chunks and then put the tomatoes on top of that and then just let it cook for a couple hours on the lowest heat. Simmer it. It'll cook down a little bit, get thick and delicious. Now, one thing to note, the longer you leave these in, the more flavor is going to leave the sausages and go into the sauce. So I like a lot of the seasoning and flavor from the sausage and the meat to be in my sauce, so I put it in now. But if you want a little less flavor in your sauce and a little more flavor in your sausage, wait until like the last 30 or 40 minutes before you drop these in. So that's an option. I'm going to go ahead and put mine in right now. And I do think the canned tomatoes are better for this, but some people do like fresh tomatoes. You do it however you like. I'm putting in the can of tomatoes. I bought tomatoes that are diced. You can get the whole tomatoes and blend them up, but sometimes the chunks are fun. Like, it would be nice if this was maybe a little bit finer, but I don't mind the chunks. And this is going to cook down until it's like just a tomato mush. So that's fine too. But yeah, I wouldn't mind it being a little bit more of a diced than a sliced. I don't know. Anyway, this will work. We will make this work. Okay, it's not very red. How do we get the red flavor? Well, some tomato paste will work. If you're not using a bright wine like I am with the Côte de Rhône, you can actually put a drop of ketchup in here. But I don't think we're going to do that because we're not Alton Brown. I put a couple of tablespoons of tomato paste in there. And sometimes I just leave this out depending on what kind of mood I'm in, because it does add a little bit of acidity to the dish. And sometimes I throw a pinch of sugar on top of that, but we'll see how it tastes. One other thing, you do want to put some Italian herbs in there. I don't have any fresh ones right now, I'm sorry, but oregano fresh is maybe too spicy. So a little bit of oregano. You can do some red pepper flakes if you like. You've got the spicy sausage, but I always like to go a little spicier. And then you can also use basil. And I'm going to put a bay leaf in here as well. But I don't have any fresh basil, everybody in the UK. So I'm just going to use some dried basil. All right, get my bay leaves in there and stuff. Just going to stir this in, make sure it's all in there good. And then I'm going to move this to the back burner and put it on low heat and check it about every 30 minutes. Taste it about every 30 minutes, see how thick it is, how good it is. But this is done whenever you say it's done, and I think it needs at least an hour. And then each time you try a little bit, see if it needs any extra salt or anything. All right, we'll see it in an hour or 30 minutes. Okay, after about 3 hours on the lowest heat possible, this is how thick it is. It is cooked down substantially. It's going to have so much ridiculous flavor. So what you want to do now is take a spoon and let it cool for just a second, and then taste this. See if it needs any salt. If it's bitter from the wine or something like that, it might need a little bit of sugar. So you're just adding salt and sugar. And if you want to chop up some basil or something like that, some fresh herbs, you can throw those in there right now and give it a little bit of a stir. Just have some of that fresh flavor coming through as well. Put this on your favorite pasta and enjoy.